All right, we're going to get started here in a few minutes. Sorry for the delay. I had to reload everything and update everything to make sure we don't have any issues going forward. All right, let's see here. Let me close out some programs that I don't need right this moment. All right. IQ that shit out of here.
Hey, you're currently listening to 92 Elm on Upbeat. This is one of hundreds of tracks that you can access and download when you upgrade to Upbeat Premium.
What up, folks? Welcome to the stream. I tried to get on here earlier, and it just wasn't working. The camera wasn't cooperating with me, so I had to sit down and figure everything out. So, as you see, I've probably been live about 23, 24 minutes at this point. But you see the title on the screen, you see the thumbnail. Time to get into this topic here. You know, time to get into this topic. So I was watching Michon Denyse the other day, and it was like I think I was live when she was live. I was on here watching the live when it was live. So she went through the whole Baltimore Is Dying documentary, and I thought that was interesting. I was like, you know what? Let me piggyback off of her story off the live stream and give my insight on it. You know what I'm saying? So, again, you'll learn more about me down further down the road. But for now, keep the comments respectful. I'm just your local villain. You know, since people hate the truth, that's just who I'm going to be. All right, so Baltimore Is Dying, right? A lot of people will argue with you about it. A lot of people will say you're all doom and gloom. They're going to say a bunch of things. Let me make sure all my stuff is not stuttering. They're going to say a bunch of things. But the documentary is true. The same stuff that's going on in that documentary is the same stuff that was going on when I was a kid. Seriously. The same stuff that was going on when I was a kid. And it's really sad. It really is. That folks can't seem to get out of their own way, and that nobody's pointing fingers at the corruption that's going on. And it's not just the corruption that's going on, it's the people as well. Because you can't have all these things happen without people being complicit with it, right? You can't. And that's just the reality of the matter. Hang on, I'm trying to get some stuff going at the same time. Matter of fact, I got some. Hang on, let me stop this damn tab. I got a tab that's running in the background. It's been driving me nuts all day. You know, sometimes when you're playing something, it'll do that. But I digress. So we're gonna get into this documentary, and I'm gonna give my thoughts on it, and I'm gonna pause the video here and there and try to give some insight as to why things are the way they are. And you know, I'm 40 years old, right? This stuff has been going on for at least 30 years. For at least 30 years. Now I'm wondering why I can't hear this in my headset. There it is. So before we get started, let me throw my disclaimer up here. Copyright disclaimer under Section 107 of the Copyright Act. Fair use is permitted by copyright statute that might not be otherwise infringing. So there's the copyright, fair use, fair use. I'm gonna pull this video up. I had everything queued earlier, so let's see here. Now this is from one of the news stations in Baltimore. Now I haven't been there in a very long time.
This program contains graphic images and content some may find disturbing.
All right, so
Viewer
here we
discretion is advised.
We live in Baltimore City amongst greatness. There's so much talent, it's like a gold mine covered with crime. Our kids dream big and they have a lot of skills, but they are being neglected. It's a vicious cycle breeding. And instead of Baltimore growing, it's like our city is constantly bleeding.
Baltimore. It's fighting to find its soul as it loses souls to a cycle of crime and violence. By virtue of being born in one of America's most dangerous cities, some are doomed.
Let me pause right there for a second. Did y'all see the little kids right here in this intro sequence? Parents of the year, right? They out here real late at night. Now, I'm going to say this, right? I know exactly where this is. I know exactly where this is. You know, I grew up there. I know exactly where this place is. Hang on, let me make sure I can pull up my map here. And it's crazy because this goes on all the freaking time. Every time there's an issue, a bunch of police show up. You see they stand around with their hands in their pockets. Nobody says anything, right? But we'll speak more on that later. But notice how they had the kids outside. There was just a crime scene. And if you look in the background, that is the Ravens Stadium, old M&T Bank Stadium. So where the hell is my... I got to add this in real quick. All right, so... All right, so let me go back in here. I got to add this scene in here. Y'all got my apologies. I done deleted so much stuff trying to figure out where I wanted to go with this video and how I wanted to do it that I can't get everything on the same page all at once. So let me add a source mirror. Here we go. Source mirror. Interesting. Sometimes they don't want to let you do anything, but I'm going to get it together. Just bear with me. Believe it or not, I've been on YouTube for quite some time, but I just never really decided to speak on issues. But when I saw her put this video out, I said, oh, I have got to talk about this. I've got to talk about it. Here we go. And boom. And let me shrink this down. There we go. And where is my key? Where is it? There. Nope. All right, so there's my scene. gotta forgive the block in the middle. It's an information block. It's not gonna let me do too much more than tell you what that is. So let me go through, hide that. All right, cool. I gotta add a hotkey to this real quick. Chat there, show Earth. All right, here we go. Like KS used to say, you gotta build it while you fly it. This will be set, and I don't have to deal with this again. Chat third. There we go. Now that I got my hotkey set, I can pull that up and drop it back down. All right, cool. All right, continuing on with the video.
Before they have a chance to live.
Let me know if that is too loud for
Grossman
folks
is
that's
one of
ninja
those
watching right now.
stories. Amani Grossman is Latrice Scaff's son. Latrice raised a family along Bonaparte Avenue in East Baltimore. It may not have been sweet, but it was home.
They've seen people get beat up real bad. You know, like I said, bodies. They hear gunshots. They couldn't go outside and play.
No place for a child to grow up.
Amani was a great kid. He was an awesome kid. He was like the life of the family gatherings. Make everybody laugh.
But that brightness began to fade as a teen.
He would talk about the violence every day.
All right, now, let me say this. When she's talking about seeing people get beat up every day, right? I've witnessed this. If you had on a certain pair of shoes and you were always fresh, and let's say you were an outcast or people didn't know you like that, you would get your ass whooped and shoes taken. I've witnessed this firsthand. First day of school, you know, you got some of the kids who didn't have much, right? I didn't have much, but I never thought about taking from people like that. You know, I would steal candy and stuff out of the store, but I've seen dudes walk home from school with no shoes on. And I can only imagine what that conversation was like when they walked in the door and their mother had to tell their mother they got beat up for their shoes. Because if there was anything like my mother, oh, you better get back out there and find them damn shoes. But they never came one-on-one. They always came with a crowd. And the ringleader was the one that got your shoes. So it didn't really matter. Hell, you might even have dope fiends try to take something from you if they could sell it. But thus is the culture. First day of school, everybody gets fresh. You lay your clothes out. Everybody had new, nice clothes. I was never one of those people. I had BS clothes from wherever my mother could get them, from Goodwill. We had Value City, secondhand stores, wherever she could find clothes, or even going out to the outlets in Jersey where the stuff was super cheap. Not Jersey, Delaware, where the stuff was super cheap. But it was never really name brand. Like, she called herself buying me a pair of Timbs, and they had like you know, they looked like Timbs, but they had a gear on the side. An effing gear on the side. Like, the box, I kid you not, the box said Timbs on it, Tims. Now let that sink in for a second. And it's not like you could refuse to wear them. You had to wear them. You ain't had no choice. Like, either take an ass whooping or wear the shoes, or she wouldn't buy you anything else. And, you know, by the time my mother bought shoes, the shoes you were currently wearing already had holes in them. So, you know, basically my mom was like, swallow it and shut the fuck up. Pretty much. You was going to take it and you was going to like it, right? But let's continue on.
You know, like things like mine, if you don't
Look
get
at
us
that
out
hair,
the
though.
city, I'ma die.
Look
I
at that
know
damn
I'ma
hair.
die.
Despite those fears, Amani remained resilient. That's Amani making a game-winning shot in a middle school game.
That ended up being one of those games where everyone rushes off the court and everyone's cheering and all that stuff. So that's probably the first memory that I have, or when I think of Amani, that's probably the first memory that I.
Now, I remember some of the messaging from back in the day, right? You know, they used to tell you either going to make it out of the hood playing ball, rapping, or in a bag. Now, let that sink in for a second. Who tells a kid that? If your parents weren't around, you had the old heads on the block saying the same thing. A lot of them folks are gone right now, though. What the hell is that damn noise? You got to forgive me. You got planes flying over top.
Pablo Korapecki coached Amani in middle school.
He was the kind of player, you know, coaches dream about.
Away from school, though, Amani faced threats and unshakable street violence. At 13, his life was threatened at knife point, and he never shook what he witnessed while shooting dice one day along his block. Amani described to doctors how, quote, a guy came up and blew another guy's brains out. Doctors would later diagnose Amani with PTSD. Amani's evaluation followed one of his 3 arrests.
Now, doesn't this sound familiar? Isn't this the same thing that happened to young Takeoff? Isn't the same thing we just witnessed? We literally just saw this with Takeoff. We just saw this. We literally just saw this. So back in the day, it was a known fact, right? The house parties and dice games were some of the deadliest places to be. If you was down to your luck and you needed a quick couple bucks, you probably stop by a dice game and hope for the best and hope that you can at least, at the minimum, double your money or get a couple extra dollars. Like, because back then, you know, $4 or $5 meant how well you were going to eat that day. I remember I ran with a crew about 8. Any given time, you'd have about 6 of us. Some were tied into the dope game or whatnot, but $5 or $6, we would head up to the store, the corner store, buy a bunch of snack cakes and maybe some Shasta sodas, and that's what we ate for the day. People try to make it seem like drug dealing, hustling, and stuff like was all extra glamorous, right? You'd be lucky if you made a couple extra dollars versus what you put into it. It's not like today where I can find stuff on the internet and find people who are willing to pay for it and flip it, that they would, you know, I would make at least double my money. That's more common than what was going on the street level. And for those of y'all who are able to watch this program and sit there and think like, damn, is it really that serious? Like, yes, it was that serious. Where you would walk around every day looking for pennies or whatever you could find on the ground. You always had your head to the ground, one eye on the ground, you know, one eye up, just to observe your surroundings. And you would save and pinch pennies just to get by, just to eat. But you was fresh as shit though. Your mom made sure you had all these clothes, but there was never any food in the house. So that's kind of an indictment on, you know, on your parents. Like, everything was just for show. There was no real guidance. Nobody really talked to you. The only people that really gave a shit about you or pretended to were your teachers at school. Like, listen to the man in this video. Get your brains blown out at a dice game. I've never seen that. I've seen it at a basketball court. You had house parties where fights break out. Somebody to give a shot there. What this young man went through, I feel sorry for him, because some of us were lucky enough to make it out of that. I feel sorry for his folks. But with as little as my mother had, she got us up out of there. She got us out of there. And you see, if you look at the countertops in that place where she's staying right now, matter of fact, let me turn this volume down. But if you look at the countertops where this lady is right now, those are the same countertops in every inner city house across the damn city. It's like those folks didn't, they didn't spend any extra money on anything. They didn't bother to design stuff a certain way. That's how you know the shit is cheap. That is one way you know everything is cheap, right? But let's continue on. Psychological PTSD. I am a veteran. I've been to combat 3 times. Had I known you could get evaluated for PTSD 30 years ago, I would have went and gone. I went through 3 combat tours before I got diagnosed. But I went through the same thing that this young man had gone through. I didn't do half as much shit as we're about to find out that he did. But seeing what this young man had gone through, like it's crazy. It's sad. It really is. But let's jump back into it.
By the age of 17. The cases involved an armed robbery, a carjacking, and a sex offense. Prosecutors dropped the charges in all but 1 case. Amani pleaded guilty to the sex offense. A judge sentenced him to 10 years but suspended 9 of them. One of his childhood friends was a co-defendant in that case.
That's what kept drawing him back into the city, his childhood friends.
So Latresa sent Amani to Virginia to earn his high school diploma.
While he was away in school, he lost maybe like 3 of his close friends to gun violence. So that's when I got nervous about him coming back to Baltimore.
Latresa...
Pause. Now you heard what she said there, right? You had to send your son away. You had to send your son away from the BS. I wish I was so lucky. You had a few friends that would go away for the summer, and you wouldn't see them no more. You wouldn't see them in the city, whatnot. You'd be bored as shit. So you would sit there and you would play basketball, do what you can, pick up games, even travel to other neighborhoods. Like back before it got extra violent, you go to other neighborhoods and find new friends and try to get in on the pickup games and whatnot, but they would be gone traveling for the summer. Some people had rich folks in the South. One of my next door neighbors, we were kind of cool. They would go down to South Carolina. Like I got family in South Carolina, but they didn't send for us like that. So, I mean, you do what you can. For those parents, kudos to them, but they still had to come back to the city. Like if you had the ability to move your kids out of the city, stay gone. I did a video a couple weeks ago telling folks that once you become successful, don't come back here. Don't come back to Baltimore. I'm not in Baltimore. I haven't set foot in Baltimore in almost 25 years. 20 years, rather. Because the last time I went to Baltimore, I got locked up on some false charges. They ended up dropping the charges. Anyway, but still. Like it's not worth the hassle of you having to spend money to fly back and forth and try to defend yourself over something that you didn't even do. Because all the stuff that I did as a teenager that I never got in trouble for, never had a court date or anything for, they just had pictures on the wall, but there's a whole 5-year gap where they couldn't explain where the fuck I was. And I had to tell them. I told them I was in the military, right? Because I had did 4 years and got out. And when I got out, I ended up having to go back to Maryland because I didn't know anywhere else. And then I got arrested on a concealed deadly weapon charge. And what they grabbed me for, what I had in my pocket didn't even qualify based on their own definition of the law. So they ended up dropping it. But you see, I still had to spend money to get out of that situation. For no reason. Because, they think that every fighting age male in the city limits is a criminal. And you see why. I knew when I was in high school, I knew guys, or little dudes rather, I'm talking less than 15 years old, who already had bodies to their name. Like people you didn't really talk to like that because you have to be pretty unstable at that age, and you already collecting bodies. And this is what this young man had to deal with. Look at his mother. Like, this is the countertops I'm talking about, right? The standard ghetto fabulous countertops and everything. You got the little kitchen that's about 2 feet wide. You walk in, the fridge is probably over here somewhere. I mean, seriously. Your son is gone. Why are you still there? That's the question I have for her. Your son is gone. Why are you still there?
Moved out of the city and into the county in the hopes of providing a safer
county
life
ain't no
for
better.
her family.
He didn't like it out here. He said it was nothing to do. He was bored.
By 2016, Amani was back in Baltimore with the same childhood friend charged in that sex offense case. This video shows them together on September 14th. Seconds later, shots rang out. Amani's childhood friend stood by and watched as he was murdered.
I felt it. It was horrible. This is the most pain I ever endured.
And what's crazy is this lady just said he stood by as his friend was murdered. What the hell was he supposed to do? Like, what was he supposed to do? No, seriously, what was he supposed to do? Like, people shooting, I mean, honestly, was he supposed to jump in front of the bullets? When the shots rang out, you get down, you get the cover the best way possible, you run, you do whatever you have to just to survive. What was he supposed to do? I like how these reporters, they try to use language, like you demonize the other guy. Like, all right, granted they made their mistakes, but then you come in and you use this colorful language to try to make it seem like this dude just stood by like it was a setup. Continuing on.
In life.
It made you look in the mirror a little bit and figure out, like, where are we kind of failing on?
Amani's bedroom is just as he left it that day.
I just hug the pillow sometimes because
Where are we? He still got the Ray Rice poster up. Where are we failing him? You want to know who failed him? You're looking at it right here on the screen. You're looking at him right here on the screen. See, when he came to you and told you to get him out of there, out of the city or whatnot, years before he started getting entangled and everything else, you didn't believe him. I had the same issue with my mother. You would talk to her about things that were bothering you. Ah, boy, please get out of my face. You don't think she did the same thing to him? There's a lot of brothers who would say that their parents did them the same way that I'm describing to you right now. Seriously. Hang on, I'll just making sure my stream is running properly. But seriously. Well, every time you ask your mother for something or you try to have an intelligent conversation, because as a teenager, you're considered a young adult. But even though you're a young adult, you would get dismissed like you were just a mere child. That dude was being sincere when he told his mother that. And that still didn't light a fire under her ass to get him the hell up out of here. And if you look at this picture right here, you see all this baby stuff, which means she had other children as well. I wonder if she had any daughters. Because if you had daughters, they would be having sons and daughters as well who would be in the same mess that she tried to get out of. But it took your son getting killed or damn near getting wrapped up in the streets before you realize, oh, you know what, I need to get the hell up out of there. So in a few minutes, I'm gonna show you some of my stomping grounds and tell you a few of the stories and things that I had to deal with. You know what I mean? It's cool, it's nice and all that she kept the room the exact same way. Fine. But you had the ability, and this is my only knock on the community right now. Well, not the only knock, but one of the biggest knocks I have on the community right now is that when you have the ability, not even the ability, but the difference between us and other folks is real simple. they work to give their children an opportunity. And then that generation sacrifices for the next generation. And then they sacrifice for the next generation. Look at all the foreigners that's coming into this country. Look at those guys. Look at them. Look at them. Seriously, look at them. They come here, they'll work a BS job and work hard as hell, save their money, start a business, pass their business to their kids. Their kids, while before they pass it on to their kids work the business, learn the business, go off to college, come back. They may or may not take over the business, but their parents have given them enough to get a good head start. I've had a lot of the foreigner friends, right? One guy in particular, I'm gonna tell you this real quick, then we're gonna get back to this documentary. So I had a soldier of mine. Parents were loaded. White guy from I think he's from Virginia. White guy, parents loaded. In order to get his inheritance, right? He had to do a full tour, 4 years in the Army, and finish. Now, me being the guy that I am, you know, I didn't go out of my way to be especially hard on him, because I was hard and fair with everybody, right? But I shit you not, right? This was 2007, 2008. The 15-month deployment, I was there for the surge. And I learned of this story. Dude was cool. Like, he was kind of an idiot, you know, troublemaker soldier. Kind of the kind of guys that I like, one of the misfits, right? This guy, he got in trouble quite a bit, but overall, he was a great guy, great soldier, right? We get off the damn plane when we came back from that 15-month deployment. His parents had drove up in a brand new, fully loaded Mustang for this guy with a bow on top of it. I thought he was bullshitting, because he had told us this story and how he had this, and, you know, he was getting all these care packages throughout the deployment. He always had money, you know, besides his regular paycheck. I mean, when you're over there, you get an extra $1,000+ and you have nowhere to spend it. So for a whole 15 months, you got all your paychecks and whatnot. And when we touched down, they reunited us with our families. His whole family showed up. They flew everybody down. I said, "What's up?" Introduced myself, you know, and they thanked me, like, "Thank you for keeping my son safe." Because we were on a convoy team. We went out like every damn day. 400+ convoys, no casualties, right? It was a good time. We prayed. We were fortunate. One of the only units I've been in where we prayed every time we went out, and nothing ever happened to us. Now that's a good deployment. But I say all that to say this. Folks like his parents, they understood that you're doing this for your children. Every day you go out here, you do this for your children. And that taught me that I had to do the same thing for my kids. Even though I had a woman who didn't care for any of that, she was always worried about the here and now. I put away for the 429K plans and all that stuff to try to give my kids a better head start on this thing called life. Now, that's one of the things we can learn from our folks, from other folks rather. You can't keep doing the same old thing over and over expecting a different result. And I don't know where it got lost in transition. I don't know where it got lost. No, hang on, I had to switch the song. But I don't know where it got lost in transition. That you, as an adult, when you have children, that you're not supposed to sacrifice and give them everything. Not one, not two, both of y'all. That you don't sit down and come up with a plan to make the next generation better than you were. Whether they appreciate it or not is a different story. That is not my concern. But the one thing I wanted to make sure is that when you look back at how your life was, if you were one of my children, that you would have no regrets. You can't say shit to me when you fumble the ball. And if enough folks would do that, you would fix the black community almost overnight. I guarantee it. But anyway, let's get back to this video.
I can still smell him.
Except for the jersey with his number on
He
it.
loved basketball.
A gift from the team.
He's at the end, number 2. I was picturing him going out of state to college, playing professional basketball.
The same picture now hangs in the gym at Amani's middle school behind the team's bench.
He's very much alive. In different places I've written down his name and things like that. So, you know, whenever I'm having a bad day, you might open the book in your notebook and you kind of see him, see his name there, and you kind of remember that there's a reason why we're here and there's a reason why we're doing what we're doing.
Amani was murdered 216 in the year 2016 outside of
All right, now a quick side note. I went back and looked at the stats today. As of right now, let's see, you're around that same number. It is November. This is shit, man, this is Thanksgiving. And the reason why I'm doing this is because this is weighed on my heart to speak on this, because a lot of people can learn from this situation. Don't go into next year. We're a month away from next year. Don't go into next year the same way that you came out of this year. If you're living in the slums, figure it out. The pandemic is over. Folks is losing their livelihood and places to stay over and over. You got to figure this out. There are so many resources out here to help folks. There's no excuse for it. If you want anything to get better, you're tired of your image being drawn through the drugged through the mud, you got to do something about it.
family and close friends has been reduced to a number. More than 300 people each year faced violent death since 2015.
We count more homicides than high school graduates, and that's a statistic. A school system that doesn't care if your kids pass or fail, lack of knowledge, no education, means our kids can end up
Fair
in jail.
use.
I don't want him to end up like his brothers who are statistics to Baltimore.
Patrice Lovett is a mother of 6. She has 2 sons in jail and is desperately trying to keep her teenage son on the right track.
I started having problems with him staying out late, coming in and out, and I was like, you know, because it's no school.
The school shutdown due to the COVID-19 pandemic caused more than just an academic decline in some kids.
Trying to tell my son, you don't want to go that road, you know. It's not the road you want to go.
Now, isn't it funny that all of a sudden today they're blaming a lot of things that's going on, the violence and so forth. They're blaming it on the pandemic, like the pandemic has always been here. No, it hasn't. This stuff has been going on for over 30 years, and it's the same old story, the same ingredients that go into this formula that keeps these cities and places with all this high violence and high crime. It's the same formula. You got single parent households. The kids don't know what to do with the kids. Parents ain't supervising. The kids are unsupervised. When school let out, they're left to their own devices because, mama or dad gotta work. Now, if you look at the charts on crime data, the fall of the nuclear family and crime almost go hand in hand. As one fell, the other one rose. The stats say 80% of the men in prison come from single-parent households. Now let that sink in for a few moments. You can't blame the pandemic for everything because you're at home. Your kids are at home. You actually had more opportunity during these last 2 years to get to know your children than you had beforehand. Because a lot of folks are out of work. You were getting paid to stay at home. You could have gotten, you were kind of limited on where you could go, but, the parks were still open. the online learning, that was a chance for you to engage your children at that level if you didn't do it before. I was always in my kids' stuff. Hey, teach me what you learned today. When my kids went to online school, I had to read the books too and figure out their lessons plans for the next couple of days to see what their teachers are teaching them. And then when they had questions with their homework or they needed help with the homework, that's what I did. So there's no excuse for this. All that money in the pandemic, if you didn't pay your rent, you should have at least saved it. You probably needed a little bit of it to eat and stuff like that. In some places, you still had to pay some of your bills. But for the most part, if you're not paying rent and you're getting all this daggone money, why didn't you save it so you can get the hell out of that situation? Why didn't you plan a few steps ahead so that you can get a better job in another city or whatnot? Hell, I would leave all that shit in that apartment. I would take nothing but clothes, my documents, a little bit of furniture and stuff that you need, and especially if you got young children, you need a crib or something like that. My ass would have been gone. But you know, hindsight is 20/20. A lot of you can't expect people who seen the conditions that Baltimore was in as normal, because at one point I thought it was normal. Up until I was about 14, 15, I thought that Baltimore was the way the world was supposed to be, that there was no hope. And then you go to like the Upward Bound program, you talk to older folks that have been around the world and they travel and they teach you a different way. So all this stuff she's saying right now, it sounds all fine and dandy, but there's no excuse for it. You're the parent.
But the pathway to prison may have already been paved. Patrice's 17-year-old son was arrested over the Christmas holiday, charged as an adult with armed robbery and assault. After spending several days in jail, he's now home on detention with an ankle monitor. Before the pandemic hit, her son was a senior, earning good grades, on track to graduate. Now, his future is not as bright. City schools' graduation rate is at a 6-year low. Experts say students that don't have an education that prepares them for employment often turn to the streets.
If the school system cannot find students who are supposed to be in the school during the day, then the criminal justice system is probably going to be somehow linked to finding those students either before they commit a crime or immediately afterwards.
They look to the streets because they feel like they have no other way to go.
Some of the students who are not being educated now will be some of the students who will be attending funerals for later on.
You don't have to tell that to this Baltimore mother. She knows what happens when the education system fails.
I have 3 deceased baby fathers, all of them gone.
She's hoping.
Whoa, so now we blaming it on the education system, right? So the education system is responsible for your home life. The education system is responsible for you making the right choices. The education system is responsible for you going out here in the streets and using guns and so forth. That's not an educational failure. That is a parental failure. Parental failure. Now I get it. You can't watch your children 24 hours a day. It's almost impossible, especially if you got to work. But if you're instilling values in your children, you're talking to them and you're investing in them, you know, the Lord says you teach a child in the ways he should go and he will not depart from that, right? Where is that at? That was a charge that even God gave to parents. And if you don't believe in God or any form of religion whatsoever, the lesson still remains the same. Why is it that 90% of the people on this planet can go and be productive citizens and not have these same problems, but when it comes to the children of this particular community, they're all drawn to the streets? This is why a lot of folks say the community is dead. Just let it burn, fizzle out, just grab who you can save and move on. A lot of folks say that. This shit is absolute lunacy. And the fact that these reporters ain't challenging it lets me know another thing, that some people are happy with the status quo. So me being a product of Baltimore, I had decisions to make. Yeah, I got into a lot of the garbage, trash bag behavior, I'm going to call it. Stealing, moving stuff for people. I got into that, but then eventually I figured it out. See, my mother didn't teach me, I'm not going to say she didn't teach me a whole lot. She was mean as hell and abusive to me. But she did teach me how to work hard and maintain a house. Because that's all I did. And she was hard on me about school. But one thing where she failed was not telling me anything about what was out in the streets. I found that out on my own because she worked 2 jobs. And you can't expect a young man to stay in the house all the time. You can't expect a young man to navigate this world without telling him anything. But you got this chick up here sitting up here blaming the entire school system for failing them. How is the school system failing the students when at one point the valedictorian, his GPA was 0.1 something? Like I remember seeing that story a couple of weeks ago. I'm gonna find that story and I'll probably show it here today. But how is the system failing? Like, what are they supposed to do? Like, you already got the No Child Left Behind thing, right? I had a friend of mine. He got kicked out of school every year of high school. He was expelled every year of high school, and they sent a diploma to his house. They sent the diploma to his house. In Maryland, they had the whole No Child Left Behind. Now, prior to that, I know, me not wanting to do my work and being an idiot, I failed 2nd grade. Then I joined this special program. I had to go to school, whatever, during the summer, and then I had to do all this extra work and demonstrate proficiency to be placed in the right grade right before high school. Now, that was on me. I take responsibility for that. I knew it was on me. I didn't do shit. But when you look at these school systems right here, Baltimore City schools, when I was in school, a lot of our textbooks was 10 years old. It's 92 or 96. I'm in high school, 96. Textbook said like 85 on it. Like, there was no room for you to write your name on the card sheet in the back front or back of the book, depending on which book you had. It had been through so many hands. Old ass books. Now that's the only thing but the information, reading, writing, arithmetic, that hasn't changed much. Now they got this Common Core thing where they try to teach better ways to teach it, and so, I'm not really a big fan of it because I came through this system and I don't feel like learning a new one. But even back then, because of rules like No Child Left Behind, because they wanted to keep, the numbers at school so they can keep their funding. It's a whole big funding thing with that. But you can't blame everything on the school system. Like, where's the accountability for the parents in this? Where the fathers at? This lady said she had 3 baby fathers who were dead, gone, deleted, out here in these streets. You picked a bunch of men who were out in the streets, and now you got children at home with no father, and they're more than likely going to repeat the same things that their fathers did. Teach a child in the way that they should go, and they won't depart from it. And I think that's what's going on with a lot of folks today and a lot of people in society.
To break the cycle that her children will make it out of the grips of the city with their lives.
I don't want to bury my children in the streets of Baltimore. I don't want them killed in the streets of Baltimore.
then you got to get them up out of there. One thing that they don't like to talk about is family planning. Why are you having children in the worst situations? You know, when the community was an actual community and folks cared about each other, then I could see, you know, certain things working. But as it stands right now, three fathers of your children are gone. They're gone. And here you sit telling folks on national television, because this was televised. You're telling folks now that you don't want to bury your children or see them repeat the same thing that their fathers did, but you're in the same situation. Make that make sense. An old sergeant major told me that if you find yourself in a hole, you just quit digging. You simply just quit digging. Baltimore is not the place where you raise your children. On the extreme side of things, we're like 7 minutes into this. I know I keep stopping the video. We're 7 minutes in. And we've heard excuse after excuse after excuse for what goes on there. And it's a lot worse than what she is letting on and letting folks believe. It's a lot worse. Remember in the beginning of this broadcast, I said that you had guys getting beat up for their tennis shoes. See, I was fortunate. All my shoes came from Dollar General or Family Dollar. I was wearing the Bruce Lee pumpkin seeds, you know, and you know, the Bruce Lee shoes, the black ones with the little white band, you know, sole on them. I got clowned every day in Bobo socks with the 3 rings. I got clowned all the time. I was a little guy. Nobody wanted to take anything back then. I was super small. So nobody wanted to take anything from me because it wasn't worth anything. Like, you know, at the time I was angry because I didn't have name brand clothes or nothing. Me and my brother shared clothes. We were about the same size. We shared clothes. She buy a pair of pants. You wear this pair one day. You wear the other pair the next day. And y'all would swap. We went to 2 different schools. So nobody ever really noticed. But I knew it. I didn't have anything of my own. You know, it kind of hurt my pride a little bit. But looking back on it, it's kind of a blessing because I didn't have to deal with the stuff that some of the other guys had to deal with. Because if you weren't popular or enough people didn't like you, they mess with you all the time. The most that ever happened to me, my mother bought me like this leather book bag because she got tired of my book bags getting broken. Somebody broke in my locker and stole it. That was the only thing that was ever taken from me in school. I had to deal with the consequences. How you let them steal your stuff out of the locker? You better find out. How am I find out? You couldn't, before they started banning book bags, like, you know, regular book bags, you had to keep your book bag and your large coats in your lockers because, you know, because of the violence that happened in school. We had metal detectors in our school. This is the 90s. It got to the point where you had the metal detectors, you had the resource officers, and then they banned regular book bags. No, prior to that, they banned large puffy jackets back when the first down jacket was cool. They started banning those jackets because there were incidents of people bringing weapons to school with those big-ass coats on. So they banned those. Here you are in the middle of winter. It's snow on the ground. You got this little thin-ass jacket. Still got to walk through metal detectors. Oh, by the way, you got these clear-ass plastic book bags like you're like in kindergarten. Is the only thing you could have. And even then, they had to look at every single bag before you got into the building. If you didn't get there fast enough, you might be late because you're waiting in line to get into the building. So things are way worse. They wouldn't do that if the environment was cool. Doors were always locked. You had to get buzzed into the school. There's a reason for that. Because what's going on outside of that school is insane. But let's continue on.
Being born in Baltimore, it's like being raised in a city with no hope. You can be robbed of your dreams as a kid just walking out your front door. These kids have gifts that are snatched away before they have the opportunity to manifest it. Growing up in Baltimore, a lot of kids don't make it.
Mackenzie Elliott, 3 years old, killed by a stray bullet. 16-year-old Alajuane Davis was shot while riding in a car. 73-year-old Tony Price was shot and killed by a stranger as he sat at a traffic light. From toddlers to teens, college students and parents, even the elderly are not immune to violence.
Taken from this world before they could even follow their dreams. Violence has become the new disease of Baltimore.
Heart-wrenching screams from a family as police removed the body of a 27-year-old man ambushed and killed inside his grandmother's home. Those same blood-curdling screams heard on that same block just 1 week earlier when 18-year-old Taylor Davis was caught in the crossfire while walking to the store. The teenager, who had dreams of pursuing a career in medicine, died outside of her home.
Justice! Justice! Justice!
Now, I'll say this, and I'm gonna let it play a little bit longer. Those screams that you heard in the previous 30 seconds, I couldn't tell you how many times I've heard the same thing. Where I lived at one point for the longest time within the city was at this apartment complex, which is kind of adjacent to Johns Hopkins Hospital. It got to the point where all you would hear is sirens every single night as you went to bed as a kid, you know. And when I finally left that environment, my mom moved us out to the county. Same as the lady in the first part of the clip. Same thing. She moved us out to the county. I had a hard time sleeping at night because you were so used to hearing sirens. It almost made it seem like it was normal. Hearing sirens was so normal, and the screams and so forth was so normal. You know, you knew, let me try to phrase this the right way. It's like when you finally heard silence at night for the first time, it was very disturbing because you didn't know what was going on. At least if you heard the police sirens, you know the police was out there trying to, you know, deal with whatever situation is going on outside with the bad people outside, and if quote unquote, back then. Like now, they could barely touch anybody. So I can only imagine how bad the city is right now. But I knew a few folks that caught some strays. Some babies when I was growing up had gotten hit inside their house when the bullets came through the wall. If you go through WBAL, if they still exist, their archive, if they put it online, you're going to see a lot of those stories of bullshit happening in the city and innocent people catching strays. Nothing's changed, at least to my knowledge. Yes, if I had to answer that question, is the city dying right now? I'm going to say yes.
The cries for Taylor Davis happened just 9 months.
Now, keep in mind
after
that
the
this
city
happened,
rallied
this
around
documentary
the
is a year old.
7-year-old Taylor
I'm
Hayes,
40.
who died after being shot inside a car in southwest Baltimore.
Enough is enough. And the reason why I say that is because we're losing too many of our kids out here.
Everybody say they praying for us. Everybody say they here for Taylor. Everybody want something to be done. Step up and tell what happened to Taylor.
Law enforcement and community leaders ask for the public's help in many cases, oftentimes offering rewards.
It's time for us to stop with the stop snitching mentality and to come together.
Exactly. I always thought that the mentality was trash. The one time I questioned it around the guys that I grew up with, you know, they damn near outcasted me for even saying something. It's just stupid. Because if something happened to one of your folks, you want people to come through and tell. But if you know the person that did something to somebody else at random, or because they had a beef or a problem with them, you better not say nothing if you knew anything about it. Even if you was standing there, you better not say anything, because it was put on the crew that you ran with to deal with you if there was a snitch in your midst. If you or one of your friends are the ones doing, if one of your friends was the one doing the shooting, not even friends, I'm gonna call them associates. One of the guys doing the shooting, and you went to the police, there's no police protection. There was no police protection back then. If people found out about it, that person would deal with you. Now, I know a lot of y'all seen The Wire. Where do you think they get a lot of their inspiration from? From actual stories where the stuff happened. That stop snitching mentality is so ingrained in folks that live in this city that you just had to take it on the chin or pick up a tool and handle it yourself. You better not ever go to the police. It could be somebody who's well entrenched within the game. You would have to deal with that person. Or you run the risk of your family members being touched if you tried to deal with them. It's hard to get through that stop snitching rule when folks are willing to delete you over it. So it sounds all, it's easier said than done. She wants somebody to come forward, but I guarantee you at least a few people in her circle know about some garbage that went down and they never said anything. It's funny how that works.
Collectively, to say enough is enough.
In Baltimore, in 2019, 3 out of every 10 cases dropped by the state's attorney's office were the result of a witness or a victim who was unwilling to cooperate. But even the death of a 3-year-old child,
exactly what I just said,
in Baltimore is not enough to end the code of silence.
We should be embarrassed to live in a city where the killer of Mackenzie Elliott is walking around enjoying this sunshine, where we will hear her voice and hear her laugh. Never again.
1-year-old Carter Scott was killed in a Cherry Hill parking lot when gunmen opened fire.
Now, I want y'all to notice, as they speak, you're not going to see any young men in the crowd. You're not. The stop snitching rule is so strong that if any young man was standing behind, they're not going to worry about the old guys. But any young man, if they seen him in this clip on TV, standing behind her while they make that speech, he will become a target. Crazy, I know, right? He will become a target. I'm not going to say any names, but I knew of one guy who decided to come forward about some of the garbage that was going on. They ended up having to send him to his folks in the South. I don't think he ever returned back to Baltimore after that.
On his father's car.
Having a child killed is one of the worst things that can happen to a neighborhood or a community.
Put the guns down because it's innocent people that's getting hurt.
You're dealing with the same people over and over again. Some days you're a victim, some days you're a suspect.
Petty disputes turn deadly. Robberies become murders.
Look at this. Look at this. You got young kids who got to walk through a crime scene to go to school. They're like either coming from school or on their way to school. Shout out to Rosie's Sports Bar. I've been there before. Like look at these homes right here. This is what they, I don't know, not sure if you can call these projects, but my cousin lived out of one of these. As soon as you walk in the door, you got steps to your right that go upstairs. You may have 2 or 3, 4 bedrooms. You got a basement downstairs. You got to go past the stairs, and the basement stairs on the backside of those stairs. And as soon as you walk in, you're right there by the living room. And then you got as soon as you pass through the living room, you hit the kitchen. Then right behind that is a door that leads to outside. Easy in, easy out. Okay? And I bring that up because when earlier in the video she talked about dude being ambushed inside his grandmother's house. Some of these places that you'll see have bars on the windows. It's not too much you can do about the doors. You got a basement door you got to worry about. So you got 3 ways into somebody's house. Insane.
Neighborhood fights become bloodbaths.
Babies, young kids, teenagers, young adults, all having their life taken. They can be caught in a crossfire or at the wrong place at the wrong time. But you
All
never
these
know.
boarded up houses.
They could be set up by their own kind. Our children face gangs, police brutality, drugs and guns all over the city.
So how does a once thriving city...
You can't complain, in my opinion. I stopped on the rat, but you can't complain about police. The hell was that? Hang on, let me take a short break real quick, and I'll be right back. Let's see, where's my intermission screen? Damn, where is that? Hang on, I'm gonna take a short break. All right, I'm back. All right, so see, how long have I been on here? 1 hour. I'm gonna pick this up in a part 2, and I'm gonna go ahead and end it here. I didn't want to go this long, but man, there's so much in this video. Matter of fact, let's go about 5 more minutes.
Get to the point where human life has no value. It's a very
And
simple
then I'll do a
question,
part 2 on this
but
one.
like so many in life, there are no simple answers. Many point to the riots after the death of Freddie Gray.
I've been recording.
Freddie Gray was known to law enforcement after drug arrests dating back to 2007. The 25-year-old African-American died in police custody, sparking outrage.
We need you guys to back up, sir.
However, the riots are not an answer, more likely a symptom of a deep-seated mistrust in a community.
It's for your safety, not our safety, your safety.
Corruption runs deep in Baltimore. It's the years of corruption in the police department that fueled mistrust with the community. The notorious Flex Squad was disbanded in 2000.
All right. So I'm going to leave it right there, and I'm going to pick it up right where the police corruption comes in, which is about halfway through the video. Because they got a part to play. You know, in the first half, you got to blame the parents on this one. The lack of guidance. You got to. But you got to blame, in part 1, you have to deal with the parents on this one. Bringing up, you know, lack of supervision, young men with no guidance will turn around and destroy the very community that you care about. Like me, I got the hell out of there. And I had, you know, a few associates of mine call me a coward for getting the hell out of there. Like, why? So I can go to prison with the rest of y'all? So that I can get shot at every day? Your goal on this planet is to live, raise your legacy, and live the best life possible. You can't do that within a city like Baltimore. You just can't. You simply can't. I think that when you look at these other places where they talk about gentrification and stuff like that, you know why that happens? A lot of it happens because nobody owns anything. It's impossible to own anything or survive in an environment that is completely hostile, that's combative. Just going out your front door, you got to worry about, well, what's going to happen when you walk out your door. Now, this is not me speaking from a position of cowardice, but this is not a place to raise children. Only a fool will continue to deal with this garbage and think it's okay. Seriously. Only a fool. But anyway, that's all I got. That's the video for today. Man, y'all stay safe out there. Happy Thanksgiving. And stay tuned for part 2.